Hello, everyone.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good evening, Ms. Deepika.
Hello, so good to see you all. Okay, since we have a time limit of only 40 minutes, so let's start immediately. And I can see everyone is muted. So I think the best way for us to communicate would be if we can put it up in the chat. Or if there's something that you would like to actually speak out, just raise your hand so that I can unmute you. Does that work for everyone? Okay, fine. So actually the Google Docs that I had created, I had just put there the three things that I thought we can discuss today is the planning of the course line and the areas of exploration and the internal assessment. Does that work fine with all of you? Is there anything else apart from this, or if you all are very sure with these things, we can go to something else also. Okay, thank you so much.
That's fine.
So, shall we start with the course construction outline? Uh, right. So, how many of you actually have been working for the previous course? Can I have a show of hands of someone who's been doing it for the previous course, that is up till the exams of 2020? All right, I can see one. Fine. All right. So, during my workshop, what I found was, I mean, I attended a workshop. I am also quite new to it right now. Uh, I think I had I was a little lucky because I had not done the previous course. My school starts doing it from this year onwards, that is looking forward from June 2020. So I have been exposed only to the new course structure and the new guidelines. So I think I had a little less confusion than the ones who were already doing it and who were practicing it for a few years. So there was a little confusion with my team members at that time. So I thought I'll be sharing a screen with you. I'm sure most of you, those who have read the guide and all, you are aware of this. But still, just to start with the course outline, I would like to share a screen with you which talks about the requirements of the course structure. All right. Okay, so this is the screen at a glance. Is this visible to all? See, here I have the IB diagram for the language literature group A. Okay, where at the core they talk about group A. Next one, the areas of exploration, readers, writers, and text, time and space, and intertextuality. Then we come to the key concepts that we go into, that we look into during the course delivery, and then the core theory of knowledge, international mindedness, creativity, activity, and service, along with approaches to teaching and learning. So I'm sure we are all very much aware of this, being practitioners of IBDP language literature. This is just at a glance what are the requirements for the course structure. Yes, did someone? All right. Okay, so this is just at a glance. I would like you all to go through it once, where we are comparing the requirements in standard level and higher level. All right, and we are talking about how many works that we take. Now here when we are talking about the works, we are talking only about the literary works, not the non-literary texts. Okay, so standard level goes with 4 works and higher level goes with 6 works. Is this a screen? Do I need to increase the size and all? Is this fine?
It's fine, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much. Minimum 1 written originally in language studied by the author, minimum 1 by work in translation, and 2 which may be chosen freely from the PRL or elsewhere. But there is so much of choice on the PRL that I don't think we need to go beyond the prescribed list of prescribed reading list or the prescribed list of authors. Minimum 2. Now see, the basic difference I found here was in HL, when we are doing 6 works, the course requirement says that we should have minimum 1 work for each area of exploration. Whereas in the standard level, where we are doing 4 works, it says minimum 2 works from each area of exploration. So that means every work of ours should deal with at least 2 areas of exploration. We cannot do it with a standalone, only focusing on one area of exploration. Okay, and this is the gist. Basically, 2 literary forms, 2 periods, and 2 places as defined on the PRL, covering at least 2 continents for the standard level. I
I'm
will.
sorry, I would interrupt you here. I think that the list is transitions. For standard level, there is supposed to be 1 work from each area of exploration, because we have in totality 4 works which are to be studied at standard level.
Yes.
So it's mentioned in the table that minimum 2 works from each area of exploration. That is for HL. For HL,
Okay.
I think it's flipped. I think it's flipped somehow.
Okay. Because even I thought so, but the
Yeah,
same
it's okay.
comes for
It's
this. I'll check it out once again. Thanks for
yeah.
pointing it out to me.
No problem, because that would mean for each area, if there are 2 works for each area of exploration, that makes it 6 works, which is the case for HL actually.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for pointing out.
No issues, no issues.
And these are the concepts that we look into with the global issues. Now we will find, those of us do MYP and EP together, the global context and global issues, they have a thin line of difference there. In MYP we focus more on the global contexts, and here we are looking at global issues which we need to make the children aware of through our text, that is literary as well as the non-literary texts, right? And yes, now this is a checklist that I have. Again, this is from the PRC, from the IB website only. I'll be sharing this checklist on the Google Docs that we have here. I'll just quickly scroll it at a pace where all of you can go through it. And if there are any questions or any discussions, please feel free, because as I told you, even I'm quite new. So though I'm a host, but I'm looking forward to my guests being quite interactive and adding to the overall understanding of we all as a group. So please feel free to put up your comments and put up your discussions for this. I think this is a very good template which we can use with a printout, so that when we are designing, we can manually fill in things and keep it as a checklist for us for deciding the overall course structure. What really got my attention was the autonomy mentioned in the principles of course design. So though we have limitations and restrictions while deciding, but we also have the autonomy as the facilitators to decide what is best for our children, and also giving an option to our students to decide, especially when we are talking about their choice for HL essay, or when we are talking about their choice for the internal assessment also for the oral topic. I think that is where they get a lot of scope to go by their choices and to decide on what exactly they would like to explore. One thing that on many of the social media platforms, that is the groups that I have been a part of, I have seen many people asking about bodies of work or non-literary texts that they could pair with the literary text that they have chosen. And one response that I always felt was appropriate for that was, let us not decide any work which we want to give as a ready-made connection to our children. Because if you leave it to them, I'm sure students find very mm, very different connections between different kinds of works and texts, be it advertisements. And very frankly speaking, I think our students, they are much more aware of if you're talking about taking up some series, some web series that they are watching, if they are looking at advertisements, even they look at a lot of tweets and memes and keep themselves abreast with things. If they are able to connect it to any of the global issues that they have read in any of the literary texts, I think they will be more involved in the process of analyzing and giving their own oral commentary, rather than we pairing things together and binding them with this particular body of work, or this non-literary text goes with this literary text. So I think the liberty given to the students is much more for their own benefit, so that they can think freely. Of course, when we are doing literary texts within the classroom, we can always show them how to connect those small extracts to some global issue, and then ask them to find different non-literary works, different things from around them to pair it with that particular extract. That is how we can give them a practice, but not specifically giving them a pairing of literary and non-literary text. And yes, see, we are still scrolling on the screen, and after the basic requirements, we also come to the question of international mindedness. How are we fostering international mindedness through our curriculum? Are we looking at the approaches to teaching and learning and the learner profile? Finally, with the connections to the core and using differentiation. So, in fact, now this is where I would like you all to just share with me that what was the best part of planning that you found when you were designing your curriculum. If I start with myself, I was really fascinated with the theory of knowledge. So every component of the course structure that I was looking into, the first thing that came to my mind was, how am I going to integrate TOK here? How does it go with the other subject groups? And what all questions can come to the children's mind? And um, I am more fascinated with language literature connection to TOK. So I would like you all to share with all of us here. In fact, we can just unmute ourselves one by one, or you can raise your hand and I can unmute you. And please share us, maybe in half a minute, what is the most exciting part for you?
Good afternoon, Miss Deepika.
Good
Abhinandan here.
afternoon.
Yeah, so basically for my learners, what they find really interesting, I mean, they come up with their TOK connections. So when they are talking about perspectives, basically, so they use their reasoning as a way of knowing. And when I deal with the body of works, basically the non-literary texts, so recently they came up with this Dove beauty giant campaign, and where they talked about this the entire text, the image was broken into multiple panels, wherein a lot of women were there and a lot of questions were asked over there: fit or fat, wrinkled or wise. So that image I remember, and they had come up with their own analysis of a second order TOK question, wherein they had, some of them had framed some very beautiful ones, and they asked about to what extent does reasoning help us in understanding the perspectives that Dove Beauty Find is trying to portray over here. And from there, some of my HL learners found wonderful connections to their line of inquiry for HLSA as well. So these are some techniques which we could intertwine for our components as well as other pattern. And learners take the onus to a great extent. That's really interesting.
Right. That is what I'm saying, that as facilitators, if we just expose them to something and then let their creativity, let their thought process flow, even we get surprised with at what level students or this young generation can think, because they have so many things going on in their minds. If you just let them free and just be there to facilitate them, okay, this is what you're doing, this is your perspective, or just to give them a little bit of encouragement, I think they come up with wonderful connections. And we
Yeah,
don't
in
have
fact, I remember. Yes, in fact, I remember when I was teaching them Carol and Duffy. No,
hmm,
that's a section that the learners had zeroed in on for their IOs. So they decided that they will pick up selected works of Duffy and Wilfred Owen, and they themselves researched and came up with some war posters and some other images and other non-literary texts which could be classified in the purview of their understanding. So they came up with some amazing connections with respect to TOK, and I was surprised with respect to interdisciplinary approach as well. So I do a lot of connection with visual arts department and English language and literature. So that really helps me to gain fresh insights into what goes on into the learner's mind, as well as exploring the various areas of exploration in depth. So strand by strand. Though I believe, I think there has been a revised updation of the areas of exploration, and as per the August to 2019 fresh guide. So there have been some changes, I believe. So if you could just enlighten us a little on that, ma'am.
okay, yeah. So, see, I just have a question here. Let's see, aren't teachers supposed to bring in all the BOW? So, teachers are supposed to bring in, they're supposed to discuss it in the class. But what I said was, we are not supposed to pair it with any particular literary text. So, suppose I am starting with, for example, my literary text starts with maybe a novel in translation, that is Woman at Point Zero. So I know there are a lot of different bodies of work which I can pair them with, but when I introduce a body of work, I won't specifically pair it with that. I leave it open for the students to either use it with that literary text or to find some connection with any other and that is where their learner portfolio comes into place, where they keep on annotating, where they keep on putting their reflections, their understanding, their connections that they found, and then use it maybe when they are doing the external and internal assessments. So
Uh,
I don't restrict. Of course, as a teacher, I bring in bodies of work, but I don't give them connections, because it happens, when it comes from the facilitator, we are restricting the thought process of the students to stick to that particular connection. And if we just introduce it to them as individual identities, they come up with amazing connections, and also there is hardly a chance of repetition for students. So everyone has a different perspective of looking at things. is there, okay, there's the same question. When you bring in a BOW, is it an entire selection as specified by IB? Depends on how much you're taking. Like, for example, if it's like Mr. Abhinandan was talking about the Dove advertisements. Okay, so when I'm taking these kind of bodies of work, there is at least, there should be a specific number, there should be a substantial number so that children can look at those works. If it's a collection of short stories, if it is advertisements, if it is songs, lyrics, there should be at least 10 to 15 of them so that they can start looking at a pattern which is there, what the author is actually hinting at. Is there a particular way in which it is put? Is there a specific technique used? Is there a particular theme that is addressed in different ways? Is there a particular style of writing? All those things, to come to a conclusion about that, there has to be a significant number of the work so that children can work on that.
Ms. Deepika, if I may add a little over here,
Please do, sir.
with respect to bodies of work, basically, the question which was pitched in by, I don't know, Miss Aditi, I believe. So she
Yes.
asked any specific number of non-literary texts in the body of work. So
Hmm.
ideally, we should have minimum 10. So 10
Yes.
non-literary text should be there in the body of work. Also, I see the next question. For the orals, can students take any literary? I think first of all, the terminology should be correct. It's literary work and non-literary text. So anything which we call literary is actually a work, and then something is non-literary text. Now, with respect to bodies of work, something which uh, needs to be qualified as a body of work, it should have. It should have. Okay. Yeah. So the authorship should be singular authorship. Say, for example, if I'm taking some kind of photographs, so they should be clicked by the same photographer. Or if say Times Magazine is updating all those images or any kind of text, so they should have the same kind of authorship. So that's exactly how you should curate your body of works, or maybe train your learners to curate their body of works. However, this question which I thought of addressing, which Ms. Shrishti had put up, uh, irrespective of it being taught in the class, no, I think everything should be taught in the class, because that clearly is mentioned in the guide. It should be studied in the course. So you cannot, the students cannot pick up anything unless it has been discussed and unless it has been taught in the classroom scenario. So that's the answer for that. I would really appreciate if Ms. Deepika would throw some light on that.
Okay, see, a few examples of IAs that my team leader, my workshop leader had shared with us. It included where, students had taken one non-literary text, okay, maybe a poem from a collection of BOW, which was paired with some episodes of a particular series that the student was watching. And that was very clear that one of the works, either the literary work or the non-literary text that the student had selected in for the oral, was paired with another work or another either text or work which the student found the connection to. So I think that was my understanding, that one of those, either the non-literary or the literary work, was taken from what was done in the class and paired with another work which maybe the student found a connection with. So now I really think I'll have to go back and maybe ask people who've been working on it, or put it up on the IB site to get a clearer understanding of. Like, there was a connection of the Carol Duffy poem with the stills from a particular web series, which I don't think was done in the class as the body of work.
Yeah,
Ms.
it was
Deepika, can I speak over here?
Yes,
13
please.
reasons why.
Please, that's what I said. Maybe let's keep it interactive.
In my workshop, I heard that the literary text has to be done in the classroom, definitely.
Yes.
But we can give choices for body of work. So for one text, I might supply 3 to 4 body of work to the students, which I might not do in the classroom. And I can just ask to build the connection between the text and the body of work, and student can choose any work if they can frame the connections.
Yeah.
No, Miss Archana, just
Yes.
to answer the question, I think what discussion is happening so far is connection between literary work and the body of work. No, there should not be any kind of connection between the literary work and the non-literary text. The chosen literary work and the non-literary text from the body of work should have a common global issue connection.
Yeah, exactly. So if they are able to frame an IO connection with it, then they can choose any IO, any non-body of work. Need not necessarily it should be done in the classroom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that is what we are discussing, that of course the literary work is done in the class, and when they're doing it, if they come across any other body of work, any different format of body of work, say it could be a painting, it could be a song, lyrics of a song, it could be as I said, some excerpts, some shots from a particular series, or even from a movie, and they could find a connection to a global issue there, so they can prepare their IO based on that.
Miss
That is
Deepika,
what
there is
I
a
think our understanding is.
No, Miss
Yes.
Deepika, I'm sorry to say, but there a recent understanding was given that the song lyrics have been included as literary works. They are not non-literary texts, so they cannot be
Yes.
included in the body of work.
Okay, but isn't that supposed to be from the given this thing?
No.
From the
You mean to say the PRL, right?
yes.
From the exhaustive list of 300 authors? No. So that is exactly what IB has just updated. That song lyrics in any form are in the concept of literary works. They are not non-literary
Okay.
texts.
Yes.
Okay.
Even I agree with it.
Mm-hmm. All right. And what about paintings and say
Paintings and yeah. So those are multimodal texts, and multimodal texts can be considered in the form of non-literary text as well. So they could get even a videograph, they could get even a still from some kind of movie picture, and they could get advertisements, infographics. So these could be considered as bodies of works. But then
okay.
again, they should be by the same author. Unless they are from the same author and they have at least 10 texts in the body of works, it will not be considered as a BOW.
Yes,
Right.
I have a doubt over here. When it comes to the number of texts, is it 10 like quantified somewhere, or is there a selection between 8 to 12, or we have a leeway to select between 8 to 12
8 to
or
8
something
to
like
10.
that?
8 to 10 is the minimum limit specified by IB.
Okay.
Also, if I
Also
can ask,
depends on the size actually.
Yeah.
as you said, ma'am, so if we are taking the clippings of a series, so what should be the duration of each clipping that we are taking?
When the children bring in from the clippings, actually what they bring is the screenshots. So, and when they decide on a particular global issue for that, generally it gets very clearly conveyed in not more than 3 or 4 screenshots, because they are discussing a lot of things within those screenshots.
So if we are taking a clipping from any of the web series, it need not be the entire episode, or it need not be the entire clipping. They can just take screenshots of that.
Yes,
But
because that is what they need to bring. They can give us a link. They can provide a link to that particular web series or whatever video they are taking from. But actually, while bringing, while giving it to the teacher, to the facilitator there, they have to bring the screenshots. So 3 or 4 are enough.
But if we are
Exactly.
selecting a body of work as, if we are selecting a series as a body of work for a class, then what should be the duration of the clipping, and how many, as discussed, there should be 8 to 10 clippings. But what should be the duration of each of the clippings if we are taking it as a body of work to teach in class?
I think, Srishti, first of all, it should depend upon the time and the content. So, as much as content you can get from that particular series, it's very, very important. And I have chosen documentary for one of my literary texts, and it was not more than 2 hours. And I think it gave sufficient content to the student to make the connection, and they could derive the connections really well from it. So that was enough, I think.
See, we could make our body of work as for the global issues. That will really help
Yeah.
us with respect to feminism, masculinity, war, protest, racism, colonialism. So these are some of the basic bodies of global issues that we could connect and try to curate our bodies of works. Because that's what I train my learners, and they have done a fabulous job. And I've got almost around like 15 to 20 bodies of works ready, and we are discussing at par every day online. And it's a wonderful discussion happens in connection with the areas of exploration and the course concepts. So it helps with the IOs as well, big time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Abhinandan or any one of you, if you would like to share during the class, how do you also, encourage students to come up with their extended essay things, or if any one of you have had students who have done extended essay in language literature, would you like to share it with us, especially
Yes,
some of us who are new to this?
sure, ma'am. Thank you for that. Actually, I had a student in the previous course who had taken up one excellent essay on, comparing the speeches of Winston Churchill and Roosevelt, President Roosevelt. So he had done a fabulous job over there by talking about the various elements, by graphically representing the entire idea of, and taking various quotes, and he analyzed it very well. So I would not be able to share much detail on this forum right now about the contents of the excellent essay done. But yeah, of course, it's quite argumentative, and we need to have a proper RQ in place. So once the RQ is framed, and then it depends on which category he chooses, is category 1 or 2 or category 3. So depending on that. So of late, one of my students is also doing her excellent essay on Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye. So she has chosen that, and she's curating her excellent essay question. The RQ is based on portrayal of feminism, and through the eyes of Toni Morrison's novel, and how far it is effective. So that RQ is well framed over there, and she's preparing her first draft as of now, and she's doing a good job with it.
Okay.
That's what I say. But I think as of now, there is a lot of question that teachers often ask me on the forum with respect to HL essay. So how to guide them, because HL essay is more or less a mini excellent essay.
Right. So would you like
So,
to share it with us?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. I always suggest that we could encourage our learners to write at least 2 HL essays in the due course of our curriculum, like for 2 years. So if we prepare them on 2 HL essays, one on non-literary texts and the other on a literary work, because that's exactly how the HL essay should be written.
Right.
So they could get, by the time they upload for the final submission, they could still make the proofreading and updations and developments on their HL essay, and then eventually they end up submitting the best work of theirs, right? So say for example, because HL learners always have a liberty to study 2 extra literary works.
Right.
So why not give them that kind of privilege to help them write around 1500, like 1200 to 1500 words HL essay, and we keep on correcting. So my learners have already finished one HL essay based on a set of non-literary texts or a non-literary text, and probably by June they are aiming at finishing the HL essay for literary work as well. So by that time, I too get sufficient time to analyze and evaluate their work and give them feedback and better their work, so that then when the IB submission time comes, so we could make a choice which one is the best out of the 2, and we could then upload it. this is also very important from the perspective that this year that the IB examinations had been cancelled, and they have actually put in a lot of emphasis on the internal assessments or other
Right.
kind of evidences that we have been putting through in our regular teaching of the course. So at that time, when the curriculum review happens or the upscaling of the course takes place, so these evidences come in really handy. So it's just my 2 pence I shared, and I'm sure others might be having their experience to share. I would love to hear about that.
Yes, Miss Meenakshi.
Yeah, I unmuted myself to just add here. Good evening, everyone. First of all, I would just like to say that the internal assessments that we are doing, we do them for the sake of preparing them for writing their written tasks. So here I say that I basically create a bank of what the assessments finally they are going to face. So in that case, what happens is like more the internal work is authentic, the power to perform better during their WTs becomes stronger. So that is how like my internal assessments is always targeted towards like how to orient them writing the essays. So basically whatever context, whatever purpose is there, whatever strategies we are adopting, I keep that in mind and then sort of prepare it, of course, keeping all the context to what we are targeting at a particular point of time, whether it's a literary text or a non-literary text. But then in every text, I ensure that I ask my learners to sort of write about it a lot. So that gives them a lot of preparation well in advance. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, ma'am. That was really helpful. So we have a question here that is, can a student choose and link a BOW for the IO even if it is not studied in class? See, if it is a BOW that is done in the class, the student can find a connection with some other work which was not done in the class, which was given. So that is what we were discussing, that when I give them different choices, about 4 or 5 of them, and the child selects one of them, it is not necessary that it has to be done in the class. Okay, everything, all of them cannot be done. Maybe the child can also pick up a work from an author that was done in the class, but that particular work was not done in the class. Say if it's a collection of as we were discussing, say some advertisements, I have done 10 of them in the class or 15 of them. The child can select one beyond those 15 also to discuss in the IO, as long as it shows a very clear global connection or global issue connected with the other work that the child is speaking on. And I think we have around 5 minutes of the meeting left, and I'm very much thankful to Mr. Abhinandan, Ms. Meenakshi, and also Ms. Sharanya, if I'm pronouncing it right. So, and Ms. Shrishti. Anyone else, any one of you have anything else to add to it, or something that we've missed out? And
Paper 2, comparative essay.
right. So, what? Like,
Anything that you want to share on that? Because now what I meant to say is we didn't discuss regarding paper 2.
Hello, Aditi here.
yes, Ms. Aditi.
What I feel is that paper 2 kind of remains the same. So, and the comparative study needs to be there, but now more than paper 2, the worry is paper 1. I feel paper 1 without the, for especially the HL students, where they have to do both the texts and within a 2-hour, 15-minute time frame. I personally find my HL kids finding it slightly difficult to maintain, equivalent performance in both the texts. Maybe the text one, the first text that they attempt is good enough. In the second one, they might run out of time. This is something that is bothering me slightly.
Miss Aditi, you are right. Just one thing that I would like to just explain, just suggest over here, that with paper 2, there is one change the learners are not expected to quote any references or words or phrases from the text that they study.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in earlier course, it was actually not a comparative thing. Now it is the comparative essay. Like in the earlier course, children and students all throughout examinees would actually be mistaken to write it as a comparative thing of the two literary works studied, like in part 3. But now it's actually becoming comparative. So that's the change, and they do not have to quote any kind of references from the literary works for their analysis, and they can choose any kind of method of comparison. They could be a parallel comparison, or they could be selective comparison, and then also make blended comparison. So all those techniques could be for paper 2.
Yeah. But paper 1, what do you all have to say about paper
If
1?
I may ask, so I'll go with paper 2 first. I have a question for paper 1 that I'll say for later. For paper 2, so are the students supposed to focus on the literary conventions that are there in the text, or only focus on the answer? Because the criteria are clearly, the criteria just ask for interpretation, evaluation. So are the students supposed to focus on the conventions as well while they are answering the question?
Yeah, they are supposed to focus on the key words of the question, and out of the 4 questions asked, they would like to choose any one that closely relates to their literary work that they have studied, and best justifies the literary works in the light of the question that they have selected. So they would, because it's a comparative essay now, that's exactly how IB has termed it. So they would want to make a lot of arguments to justify their viewpoint in the light of the 2 literary works.
Even I have a question. When you said that the students don't quote the text, what they are comparing over here, so you
Right.
mean to say that they don't quote the name of the text, or you
No,
wanted to say about
they don't pick up lines as references to substantiate their points, their arguments, which they were privileged, or which they were allowed to do in the previous guide as per the previous syllabus. So now they don't pick up the lines to underpin their arguments.
So just to add on to it,
If a child does it, yeah.
Can you please repeat your question again?
Yeah, Miss Aditi, we couldn't hear you.
No, I just left off to let you speak, Shrishti.
I'm so sorry. So is it like the students have the choice to quote it, or they do not have to quote? Because for the first objective, it is understanding, understanding of the text. To show the knowledge and understanding of the text, won't a student get more marks if he or she is quoting not the entire thing, but certain words and phrases from the text?
No, because in my trainings, because what I've understood is what the trainers have told me is that it's not necessary.
It's not necessary, but you can always quote. If a child can do it, I'm sure you're not going to penalize the child.
The child will not be penalized at all.
Yeah. So it's not necessary, but the child can do it if the child is good enough in memorizing.
Why they asked is, at times the child infuses in a lot of quotations, and they heavily depend on the text, and it's not always not possible for the child to remember so many quotable quotes from the text, from the literary work. So especially when they do a lot of graphic novels, and especially like Persepolis, they are so thick graphic novels. If they are doing the entire Persepolis book, so then it doesn't make it quite relevant to quote some pointers from there, or stands from the text.
Right.
The balance has to be maintained by the child.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, what I was saying was, in fact, it is more like the students won't be penalized. Earlier, they were penalized if they did not quote too much, but now they may quote. They will not be penalized if it helps them to remember things or to focus on things, whatever they are discussing. Okay, word limit for what? Yes, that's a question. Can you please tell about the word limit? So which word limit are we talking about here?
Paper 1, paper 2.
Yeah, both for paper 1 and paper 2.
Paper one, paper one, ideally, no word limit has been specified, but anywhere between 900 to 1100 words should be fine.
Excuse me, Mr. Abhinandan, is that only for the one? Because when you have HL students, it's attempting for both the
Yeah.
tasks that's been provided. So in that case, I just want to clarify if the word limit is 900 for the question one, or is it for both questions together? And what
No,
about, is there a
for
variation
each
between the
question.
word limit for HL and SL?
No, no, no. There is no difference between the word limit, like in the word limit between HL and SL. That's not a
Okay, sir.
difference at all. So
Okay.
each, because SL is opting for only one non-literary textual analysis, and
Okay.
SL is opting for two non-literary textual analysis, and they have no option.
Okay.
And the word limit could ideally range between, what I do for my learners is between 1000 to 1200 words. That's what I tell them, and they do a
Okay.
fair job.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
It
And
will
what
be
about
helpful if we just give them an outline of when they're analyzing. Many times I have seen students focus on only one aspect when they're analyzing. They stick to one thing. If they're talking about the use of words, if they're talking about, say, if it's an advertisement or if it's an article and all, they focus on one aspect of analysis and forget to comment on the other things. So it's always good to give them guidelines or an outline about whenever you're analyzing things, get a checklist of things. I have commented on this, I have analyzed this, I have analyzed this. So that way at least they can be sure they don't miss out anything, especially while writing the exam. There are many students
Yeah,
who under the pressure of
absolutely.
time limit or looking at things, first of all many of them cannot make up their mind, especially for SL, which particular text they are going to analyze. So as teachers, we can give them a practice of making a checklist, organizing their thoughts. Okay, this is how I go about it, this is the main focus, and then I talk about this and this and this, so that it's organized well, their analysis, and plus they take up all their topics so that they don't lose marks on something that they've not attempted.
Yes, absolutely right, Ms. Deepika. The time management is something very important that we might need to teach our learners, because HL learners might grapple with the time a little. So, but if you give them enough practice in class, I'm sure they will not fumble in the exam.
Yes, so it's all about that when we are preparing them for the exam, right from day one, it starts with as if they are preparing for a task, that how they manage their time, how they look into the other aspects, how they put a cumulative understanding into one paper.
Absolutely. And
Okay,
also,
I
like
think
if we send them
Zoom
on
is
the
being
various,
very kind to us and the meeting is not abruptly ending. So I think we can utilize this opportunity to continue with the meeting. So I was worried that it will just snap shut after 45 minutes. And since it's continuing, let's utilize this opportunity. If like all the participants, you'll have time and you're okay with the extended time.
with respect to textual analysis for paper one, it's always advisable to train our learners to begin with an overarching statement or a thesis statement, because that's what I find missing out as an examiner. Because I'm an examiner for HL paper one, so I find that amiss at times, and which I give a feedback to the principal examiners as well. So that is one feedback from my end. I see a lot of people asking about learner portfolio. Though learner portfolio is not something which will be assessed externally, but then it's a very good idea to help them document and maintain a record of whatever they learn. The entire learning process, the learning curve can be documented. So in the smallest, in a most feasible way possible, for in the form of a presentation, in the form of a journal, if it's a notebook, yeah, anything. So learner portfolio is a very good way, because IB might ask at the time of review, or they might ask for evidences that how have you, charted or recorded the learning of your learners in school. So that might be something that we might want to take care of. Either you make a Padlet or make a OneNote document. So there are various tools and various strategies how you can go about learner portfolio maintenance.
Yes, I think Miss Sangeeta has a question.
Comment on something, which is that, when we are as teachers, we have in our heads all of the things we definitely want our children to write when they write their essays. But I think the one little thing that we have to guard against is that, the children don't attack the paper with that grocery list of, literary devices which they must speak of. So, of course, as teachers, we want them to pack it all in. But I think somewhere that skill of weaving it effectively is what we also have to teach them. Otherwise, it becomes too obvious that we've given them a list for them to go down.
Yes,
That is what I'm saying when I said there has to be a checklist. So many a times, especially as I told, I have not yet dealt with DP students, but I'm sure we'll get a lot of students who are coming from the non-IB background also. So getting those children into the format of how you attempt the questions and all, like in MYP, especially if I talk about say MYP 2 and 3. So the first thing of analysis that comes to their mind is, they look at, okay, content, character. So they go by that list. So, when you're giving them a feedback or when you're asking them that it should not look like bulleted points, I've attempted this. So that is a practice we need to give them. A very subtle checklist, I should have used the word, wherein they're attempting everything, not making it obvious as if they're using a checklist. So, but yes, you have to talk about the structure also. You have to talk about what's the impact on the audience also, how you as a reader felt about it, and plus the use of various things. Like if it's an advertisement, one of the samples which is there on PRC for the paper one, it includes an article from a magazine and it includes an advertisement. So when they're talking about the advertisement, when they're talking about the font, the use of color, and what's in the background, what's in the foreground, what is the message, the implicit message, the explicit message, all of these things, of course it comes with practice. Otherwise they look at it very superficially and they feel very good about it. So when final grades come, they are surprised.
Yeah, I had one more thing to ask, and which is that, for those of us who are doing DP and MYP, it would be a good thing for people who are new to the curriculum to say how the DP curriculum is rooted in the MYP. How does the MYP Langlet create the foundation that you need for delivering the DP? If the thing that the teachers were teaching, if you could speak about that, I think that would be a very good learning for everybody.
Sure.
I think,
Mr. Abhinandan, would you like to? Yes, Ms. Shristi.
Please take over.
In MYP, we teach the students how to analyze. So in MYP, the criteria goes as analysis, producing text. So when we are doing producing text, that builds on the creative aspect of the child. And those things are required in DP because analysis is taught to the student from grade 6. So when the student comes to DP, if you talk about paper one is all about analysis. If you talk about comparative essay, that is paper 2, that also includes a lot of analysis. So analyzing the text. And if the base of a child is built in MYP, DP becomes very easy for them. The only thing is in certain schools, in MYP, certain schools don't focus on reading more literature because e-assessment is not a literature-based exam. So that becomes one problem which I have observed, that MYP students are not as well read sometimes as maybe IG students are, because in MYP the paper pattern is meant in a way that literature component is not focused on.
Yes, Ms. Shrishti, and
that's also true. Sorry.
No,
go ahead.
Please continue, ma'am. Please continue. Ms. Sangeeta, please continue.
Saying that, like you were saying, that very often the literary content is not looked at. Similarly, for IGCSE, a lot of schools are not doing the lit paper. They're doing only the FLE paper, and the children come with the same handicap.
Yes, so if the literature component is not focused on, then as you said earlier, reading becomes a problem. And if the students are not well read, then they will face problems in analysis, because say paper 1 or paper 2, okay, we can still give them the literary text and they have to write their answer based on those texts. But in paper 1, they need to have the understanding of what is happening around, and their understanding of the world also helps them in analysis of paper 1.
Yeah,
And now
absolutely.
is there in paper 1, it is not only related to what is there on the what is there in the text, it is also related to the global issue of what is happening around and the understanding of the global issues, which can definitely be enhanced by reading literature.
Agreed. I mean, that's a wonderful trajectory from MYP to DP. And like, just to reiterate on what Ms. Deepika had mentioned a little while ago, with respect to not, leaving the rhetorical devices in the form of a grocery list, standalone ideas. So in this case, I would suggest, to help our learners to identify a technique or teach them a pattern how to, blend in the rhetorical devices in a proper, like a fluid. The idea should flow, ceaselessly and effortlessly without, making it sound like a question answer round or something very deliberate, wherein they are making sentences like, okay, I find an example of an asyndeton over here, I find an example of sibilance, and then they just start quoting. So that becomes too structured and forced. So they should, come up with sentence structures and pattern and combinations, wherein the idea is, like gelled well with the evidences and the analysis that they're trying to make. It's quite like the writer's effects or the commentary that we make, similar on those grounds, where we refrain from keeping the ideas in a standalone format and then try to pull in a structured and cohesive manner. So that is something that we would like to, train our learners, because that makes for a better writing.
But I'll tell you, all said and done, this is my own feeling. I think the kind of work we ask these young people to do, and they do such a good job with it, it's amazing. I wish somebody had done this with us. I don't think we could have done it in our time quite as well as they're doing it. So full marks to the children who we've got these days. And also because we have educators like us, like all of you who are bringing it together. I mean, that's the reason why it's happening as well.
I totally agree. Yeah, that's really true.
And at times, we are amazed to see the work of the students. And if we were asked, I don't think I would have been able to produce the work like my students have been producing in past so many years. So yes.
I know.
I think it goes, the credit also goes to giving them the liberty, where you are not afraid to express yourself, where they identify, they put their voice, they voice their concerns and what they find it. So I think we as learners, as students at that time didn't have the liberty, it was not accepted. So maybe
and I think as educators we enjoy teaching the MYP DP English so much, you can't teach anything else after this.
I know. See, it's exciting. It's like, and
I want to add something actually. Sorry, I'm
Please.
interrupting. I guess.
Please.
I guess. Yeah. Hi. Hi. So I also think that what Miss Deepika and Miss Sangeeta has already. Both of you have mentioned that one more thing, when we are giving the kids the liberty and also the interactive, classes that we are actually having with them. That is again one point where the kids are coming up with a lot of what should I say? They are coming up with their ideas more. They are able to put them into the framed process, and then when we as an educator facilitator we see those works, we ourselves get really astonished sometimes that how come they picked up all those tiny little things which we have mentioned, and they're also adding on something of their own. This is what I feel all the time.
Yes, Miss, you are right. This is also born out of a lot of exposure to media now, and which they are they are more equipped than we had been, or maybe I had been 10 years ago. So of course, that really helps. So
yes, I can quote one thing. Yes. I can quote one thing. Couple of months earlier, I was asking my students to write. We are basically asking them to write an analysis, and the analysis was of a few of the quotes by one quote by Napoleon Bonaparte, and that was that four hostile newspapers are more dangerous or more to be feared than 1,000 bayonets. And the kind of, write-up I got, I was really, really touched, because the kids nowadays are so much, with their ideas, and they know how to express all those voices, and all those quotations were, taken from here and there, and how brilliantly the kids have literally explained their own understanding. I was really, really touched. That was something that I can share with you.
That's great.
Yes, I find here in the chats there's one concern that about the literature, what we were discussing, that many children are not exposed to it, or we don't find it addressed in MYP. So I think that is where our responsibility lies, because there might be schools or institutions, or maybe some government machinery, some guidelines which still focus on the the older set of learning, that children should be able to answer this and this, and for the ease of learning, then I think schools restrict the literary works or the literature aspect. So that is where we need to put in our effort to inculcate that habit of reading in the students. We cannot just ignore it, saying, oh, MYP 1 6 standard, they're not used to it, let's not give them the whole literary work to read or anything. I think it is on us to, we take something, we leave something, but we don't leave it completely that it's beyond them. Maybe the whole class, all 100% of my students might not be able to finish a particular work, but at least holding the confidence of holding a copy of their own book, keeping it with them, reading a few pages, maybe that is where our scaffolding also comes into place. But encouraging them to read, not leaving, because I have seen, especially in the scenario here, in fact, if I talk about the place here, the children are not very fond of reading as such, picking up a book and all. They might be into watching animes, they might be into light reading, but not some completing a book and all. But that doesn't deter me from actually keeping it in their course and asking them to read. I know some of them might not finish all of it, but at least if I give them parts by parts to read and ask them to analyze and all, and give targeted questions, develop that habit right from the starting years, I think we'll be able to build it up till they reach at least MYP 5 and then are ready to come to DP.
Yes,
In
absolutely.
fact, if I may add, we have a participant, Miss Tori here. I know ma'am has been dealing with PYP 5. Okay, and they are the children who we are expecting to come to MYP 1. So if ma'am would like to add how they are building English, especially language development in, say, the last year of primary years, I think that would be helpful for us to understand how the continuum works. Ma'am, would you like to add something to it?
Yeah, well, so see, now, as of now, as because they don't have the practice of reading books, like we don't have that much of book reading in our curriculum. So they just keep writing. When they practice their writing skill, I just ask them to reflect on them, whatever they have written, and the peer correction. So how they started in the beginning of the year compared to that, now it has quite improved. So basically what problem they're facing is sentence constructions. That is what the main problem that they're facing, and even the spelling mistakes. So we are just having some drilling exercise, some phonetical practice. So that's what I started the year as. Now they have improved quite a lot. So hopefully in the next year in MYP1 they will be improving much better. Yeah.
Okay, so basically, I think we all face challenges in whatever year we are dealing with,
Of
whatever
course.
class. But it's all like building on the prior knowledge, taking them forward, encouraging them. Like as ma'am said, even if the sentence structure is a little haywire,
Hmm.
but initially they need a little bit of hand holding and encouragement to at least come up and express themselves. It doesn't matter if they make a spelling
Exactly.
error, because if they see a mark there with a spelling and oh, what sentence is this and all, I think we'll be curbing their mm, interaction there.
Yes,
So
yes,
we can
yes,
slowly work on building their confidence so that they come up with their own
yes.
analysis. And as ma'am mentioned, I think we all did not go into reflection. We reflected on our learning, but I think students' reflection is something that we all count on. So ultimately, what results we get here is because we've developed that habit of reflecting after everything done in the class, be it an activity, be it a learning engagement,
Exactly.
be it an assessment. So I think reflection happens to be the most important component of
So we
practice
have the
learning.
read aloud sessions in the class, and as well as when I give them some text to read at home and come and share the summary to the class. So that's how they just find, okay, this is the spelling which I wrote, and this is the exact spelling, and this is how it should be pronounced as. So this is how they improve.
Yes, so learning from each other is what we are.
Yeah.
And yes, I just now realized it's actually getting late. So I don't mind if some of you have to leave. I know there would be engagements. You had, made provision for these 40-45 minutes. So anyone who is, who has to leave, please feel free. No issues at all. Thank you so much for joining. And as I said, though the name says host, but I think I was also a learner here. There was so much to learn from all of you, and it was a lovely session. In fact, if we can have a few more sessions and all in continuation with this, I think that would really accentuate our learning. So would anyone else like to add something, or one request, please? I will be sharing my course structure plan on the Google Docs, and anything else that you would want. We all depend on each other for sharing of resources and discussing and coming to a better clarity. So I request all of you to put questions, to put your resources there, and maybe I'll create a table where we can put our names and email IDs and all, so that we have better access to each other, and just take the liberty of dropping a mail and disturbing for any clarifications, if that is fine with every one of you.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, so shall we end the meeting now? Is there anything else that we need to discuss right now?
Miss, someone asked if you could share your email ID.
Yes, I'll put it on the, actually that's what I said, on the Google Doc, the link for which is provided. I will create a table there with the name column, the school, maybe the name of the school or the location, and the email ID. So we can all fill in our details there.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. It was wonderful in a meeting with you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you, Ms.
ma'am.
Deepika, and thank you, Mr. Abhinandan. It was
Thank you
really
so much.
helpful.
Yes, most welcome.
Thank you
Take
so
care. Stay
much.
safe.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.